At my 39th birthday, I learned my husband's family hid his affair with my wealthy boss. They told me to accept it. I smiled, handed them an envelope. Minutes later, he was begging me to give it back. Oh, you guys, I still can't believe this happened. Imagine walking into a room where your entire life shatters into a million pieces, not by accident, but by the cold, calculated betrayal of everyone you thought you loved. And the worst part? Your husband is right there, his hand casually resting on your boss's shoulder, wearing the wedding ring you gave him. My entire world imploded in that moment, and the sickening twist? They were all expecting me. I remember it like it was yesterday. I walked into Anastasia Blackwood's private office, my boss, sitting at the head of the table like she belonged with my husband's family. Cody was there, his parents, Eleanor and William, even his sister, Patricia. This wasn't a Meridian Enterprises meeting, not really. Eleanor, my mother-in-law, started talking about restructuring opportunities, but my brain just froze. All I could see was Cody's hand on Anastasia's shoulder, his wedding ring glinting under the floor-to-ceiling windows. My husband. My boss. Restructuring? I heard myself ask, my voice sounding foreign. William cleared his throat, talking about my position at Meridian and Anastasia having ideas about my future. That's when I saw them. Legal documents, spread across the table, Anastasia's signature already on them. The meeting was scheduled for 3 p.m. I'd been knee-deep in quarterly compliance reports when Anastasia's assistant called, urgent, no details, just come to executive floor 4 immediately. The elevator ride-up felt normal routine. I'd made that journey hundreds of times in 5 years, usually carrying vital reports for Anastasia's approval. But walking into that room? It changed everything. Sit down, Sierra, Anastasia said, her voice dripping with that particular tone she used for delivering bad news to clients. She was wearing the crimson Chanel suit I'd complimented her on last month, the one she said made her feel powerful during difficult negotiations. Oh, she was feeling powerful all right. I stayed standing, my legs disconnected but somehow holding me up. The mahogany table felt like an ocean between us. Cody wouldn't look at me, his eyes fixed on some invisible point, just like when he was trying to avoid acknowledging market risks. This is highly irregular, I managed, my voice a thin whisper. Whatever restructuring Meridian is considering should go through proper channels. HR should be present. Patricia shifted uncomfortably, clutching her designer handbag like a life preserver. I noticed the carefully applied concealer under her eyes. She'd clearly been crying. This isn't exactly a standard corporate restructuring, William said, adjusting his tie, his Harvard class ring catching the light. It's more of a family discussion that happens to have professional implications. Family discussion. The words hung in the air like an accusation. I looked at these people, my family for 12 years, holidays, birthdays, Sunday dinners. Eleanor wouldn't meet my gaze, fixated on her phone. Patricia kept opening and closing her mouth. And Cody, my husband, the man who'd promised to love and honor me? He sat there like a stranger in a familiar face. What kind of family discussion requires my boss's presence? I asked, but a cold dread was already setting in. The late nights Cody had been working, the unexpected business trips that oddly coincided with Anastasia's travel schedule, Eleanor's sudden, intense interest in my overtime hours, it all clicked. Anastasia leaned back in her chair, the same chair where she'd promoted me 6 months ago, telling me my integrity made me invaluable, that she was grooming me for partnership. Sierra, you're an intelligent woman, she began, using her silky voice for explaining complex financial instruments. Surely you've noticed that the dynamics in your marriage have been evolving. Evolving. Such a clinical word for betrayal. And they'd all been aware of this evolution. I looked at Eleanor, the woman who'd taught me her secret Thanksgiving stuffing recipe, who'd held my hand at my father's funeral. She finally looked up from her phone. We didn't want to hurt you unnecessarily. Some things resolve themselves naturally if given time and space. Time and space? I repeated. Is that what you call secret meetings in my boss's office? My eyes fell back to the legal documents. Separation agreements. Asset division. And what looked like a draft resignation letter from my position at Meridian on company letterhead. You've already prepared my resignation? A brittle, sharp laugh escaped me. How thoughtful. We wanted to make this transition as smooth as possible, William said, his boardroom voice smooth. Anastasia has been very generous with the severance terms. Generous. My mentor, the woman I trusted with my career, had been planning my professional demise while sleeping with my husband. And his family? They not only knew, they facilitated it. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of them, all of them, sitting around that table with their prepared documents and practiced explanations. They looked like a board of directors conducting a hostile takeover. Which, in a way, they were. Sierra, please be reasonable, Cody finally spoke, his voice careful, measured. This doesn't have to be adversarial. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I'd made breakfast for that morning, whose coffee I'd prepared exactly how he liked it, 1 sugar, splash of cream. He wore the tie I'd given him for his birthday, the silver one that brought out his eyes. You're right, I said, surprising even myself with my calm. It doesn't have to be adversarial at all. I turned and walked to the door, my hand on the handle. By the way, Anastasia, you might want to review Section 12 of Meridian's corporate ethics policy, the part about supervisor relationships with subordinates' family members. I wrote that section myself, remember? Very thorough documentation requirements. The color drained from Anastasia's face. Oh, and Eleanor, I added, cancel whatever you're planning for my birthday party next month. I'll be making my own arrangements. I left them there, in that room, with their documents and their restructuring plans. The facade of our perfect family had shattered beyond repair. But I also knew something they didn't. I'd been documenting irregularities in Anastasia's expense reports for weeks. I'd noticed the pattern of Cody's client meetings aligning with her schedule. And the senior compliance director at Meridian Enterprises had access to every financial record, every email, every corporate credit card transaction that would tell the real story of their betrayal. The elevator ride down felt different this time. 32 floors to plan my next move. 32 floors to transform from victim to architect of my own revenge. I walked through the marble lobby, my legs feeling disconnected. The security guard nodded, oblivious. Outside, Manhattan rushed past, but I stood on the sidewalk, unable to remember where I'd parked. My phone buzzed. Marcus, my assistant, had sent 3 messages. Need to speak urgently. Off the record. Coffee shop on 47th? Marcus never asked. For off-site meetings. I found my car, my hands steady on the wheel, even as my mind replayed Cody's fingers on Anastasia's shoulder. Marcus was hunched over a laptop. I've been debating whether to show you this for 2 weeks, he said, turning the screen. But after seeing you come down from Anastasia's office looking like that, I can't keep quiet anymore. It was Anastasia's calendar, filled with portfolio review, private blocks. Always when I was traveling. No client name, no meeting room, Marcus whispered. And look at the pattern. Every single one aligned with my out-of-office schedule. How long? I asked, my voice eerily normal. First one I noticed was September. The weekend you went to Boston for the regulatory conference. He pulled up corporate credit card records. Anastasia expensed a dinner for 2 at Daniel that Saturday. Listed as client development, but no client name. September. 3 months ago. The same time Cody started locking his laptop, taking calls in his study with the door closed, showering before breakfast. There's more, Marcus said gently. Your husband's investment firm started getting referrals from Meridian around the same time. High-value clients that usually go to our preferred partners. I stared at the screen, my life's dissolution laid out in calendar entries and expense reports. Why are you showing me this, Marcus? You're taking a huge risk. He closed the laptop. Because you're the only executive at Meridian who's ever treated me like a human being instead of furniture. And because what they're doing isn't just wrong, it's illegal. Steering clients to benefit a personal relationship? That's a violation of about 12 different regulations you taught me to watch for. My phone rang. Eleanor. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. I should take this, I said, dreading her voice. Sierra, darling, she cooed, her tone bright, artificial. Are you coming to dinner on Sunday? I need to know for the catering. Catering? Since when do you cater Sunday dinner? Oh, didn't Cody mention? We're having a few extra guests. Potential business partners William wants to impress. She paused. You're not traveling this weekend, are you? I know you have that Miami conference coming up. Miami? That wasn't for 2 weeks, and I'd only told my team. How did you know about Miami, Eleanor? Oh, I must have heard Cody mention it. You know how proud he is of your career advancement. Speaking of which, are you working late tomorrow? Thought we could have lunch. 3 calls in 1 week, asking about my schedule. My mother-in-law, who usually communicated through Cody or holiday cards, suddenly desperate for my every movement. I'll let you know about Sunday, I said, ending the call. Marcus was watching me. You okay? My mother-in-law has called 3 times this week, asking about my schedule. She's never done that. I looked at the calendar entries. Marcus, can you check if there were any family names on Anastasia's calendar during those block times? His fingers flew. I can't see meeting details, but... He pulled up the visitor log. This is interesting. Cody Hawthorne signed in as Anastasia's guest 4 times in the past month. Always during your travel dates. For times. My husband had visited my boss while I was out of town, and no one had mentioned it. Not Cody, not Anastasia, not even Patricia, who worked 2 floors down. 2 weeks later, at Meridian's annual charity gala, I was in Philadelphia on an emergency audit that had mysteriously become critical 3 days before the event. You have to go, Sierra, Anastasia had insisted. You're the only one I trust with the Fitzgerald account. I'll make your excuses at the gala. I spent that weekend reviewing documents that could have waited, missing the gala where, apparently, my husband had served as my boss's date. The company Instagram told the story. Cody in his tuxedo, Anastasia in a gold gown, his hand on the small of her back. The caption read, Meridian Enterprises appreciates the support of our extended family. Extended family. The phrase made me sick. My colleague Bethany had mentioned it casually the next Monday. Your husband is so charming. He had everyone laughing at Anastasia's table. Such a natural networker. Anastasia's table. Not general reception, but her table, an honor usually reserved for major clients or board members. The final piece of the puzzle came 3 weeks before my 39th birthday, at Rachel's wedding. William's niece. I was on the terrace when James, Cody's younger brother, found me. He'd always been the weak link, too sensitive for the Hawthorne strategic approach. He was swaying slightly, clutching champagne. Sierra, he slurred, you're too good for all of this. For what they're doing. What? Who's doing what, James? He looked around nervously, then leaned closer. The family. They've been handling things, managing the situation. But you deserve to know that Patricia appeared, her smile sharp as glass. Mom's looking for you, James. Something about the toast. She grabbed his arm, but James resisted. She should know, Pat. It's been months. The whole family knows. And we're all just pretending. James is overwhelmed, Patricia said to me, her fingers digging into his arm. Wedding emotions and too much champagne. You know how he gets. She dragged him away, but his words echoed. The whole family knows. James's drunken words haunted me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at our kitchen table, staring at my laptop. His words, Marcus's evidence, Eleanor's calls, the pattern was there, begging to be seen. But I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof that would hold up not just in my heart, but in a courtroom. My college roommate, Beth, had survived her own corporate nightmare. She'd mentioned a forensic accountant. Linda Garrison. I found her number. Linda answered past midnight. Beth told me you might call, she said simply. Meet me tomorrow. Bring every financial document you can access. We met in her nondescript Queens office. Linda, in jeans and a Columbia sweatshirt, looked more like someone's favorite aunt than a financial detective. Tell me what you know, she said, pushing coffee across her desk. I laid it all out. The calendar patterns, the family's strange behavior, Cody's sudden interest in Meridian events, James's confession. And you have access to Meridian's financial systems? She asked. I'm Senior Compliance Director. I have access to everything except executive compensation details. Linda smiled. That's more than enough. Here's what we're going to look for. Unusual patterns in client referrals, contracts that don't follow standard approval, investment opportunities that should have gone through competitive bidding but didn't. Over the next 3 days, working after hours in the empty Meridian offices, I pulled records that painted a devastating picture. 6 months ago, around the time those mysterious calendar blocks started, Anastasia had begun steering investment opportunities to smaller firms instead of our usual institutional partners. The lion's share went to Hawthorne Global Investments, Cody's family business, which had mysteriously pivoted to investment management just as Anastasia and Cody grew closer. Premium municipal bonds, private equity opportunities with guaranteed returns, pre-IPO stock allocations, all quietly directed to the struggling Hawthorne import business. $2 million in directed business over 6 months, Linda said when I showed her the documentation. That's not an affair. That's a financial conspiracy. Your husband's family didn't just know about the relationship. They were profiting from it. The evidence grew more damning. William's signature on contracts he had no business seeing. Eleanor listed as a consultant on deals despite no financial credentials. Patricia's design firm suddenly receiving Meridian's marketing contracts at 30% above market value. I stayed up until 2 a.m. that night, mapping everything on my whiteboard. Red lines connected dates, blue circles marked transactions, green highlights showed every family dinner where my schedule had been discussed. It looked less like an affair and more like a coordinated corporate raid. Sunday dinner, Eleanor asking about my Boston trip. Monday, Anastasia scheduling a portfolio review. Tuesday, $1 million municipal bond allocation to Hawthorne Global. Wednesday, Cody bringing home flowers, the guilty gesture I'd attributed to work stress. Then came the corporate credit card discovery. I was reviewing routine expense reports when Cody's name appeared on an authorized user list, not for his own firm's cards, but for Meridian Enterprises' card ending in 4421. Anastasia's executive account. My hands shook as I pulled the detailed statements. The St. Regis Hotel, multiple charges on dates I'd been in Seattle. Daniel, 11 Madison Park, intimate dinners for 2 during my Philadelphia audit. A Hamptons rental, labeled Client Entertainment, coinciding with my mother's birthday visit to California. But the worst was Cartier. The day after my promotion, a $15,000 charge for estate jewelry consultation. The same day Cody had said he was proud of me, held me close, promised we'd celebrate properly. I was printing these documents when Patricia appeared in my office doorway. It was 7 p.m., the building mostly empty. She looked haggard, her suit wrinkled, makeup streaked. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door. I kept printing. Patricia sat in my guest chair, clutching her purse. "I know you know," she said finally. "James told me about the wedding." I turned to face her, keeping my expression neutral. "What exactly do I know, Patricia?" She stammered, then looked at the ceiling. "The family, we've been trying to protect you from unnecessary pain. Sometimes these things work themselves out if given space and time." "Space and time," I repeated. "Is that what you call facilitating secret meetings between my husband and my boss?" Patricia's face crumpled. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. At first, it was just business. Anastasia could help our family's firm, and Cody was the natural liaison. But then, she twisted her purse strap. Mom and Dad saw an opportunity. They said if Cody was happy and the business was thriving, everyone would benefit eventually. Everyone except me. They said you were too focused on your career to notice. That you and Cody had grown apart naturally. That this was just evolution." The word made me sick. Evolution. As if betrayal were some natural process. Patricia stood abruptly. "I shouldn't have come. I just wanted you to know that not everyone agreed with it. James and we tried to tell them it was wrong, but the money, Sierra. The family business was failing. Dad was going to lose everything." She left before I could respond, her confession hanging in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning for months while I slept peacefully. I stood in my empty office. The family business was failing. They had traded my marriage for financial survival. The printer continued its rhythm, spitting out page after page of evidence that would either destroy them or destroy me. No middle ground left. That night, I went home and cooked dinner as if nothing had changed. Cody sat across from me, scrolling through his phone, unaware I was recording our conversation. "How was your day?" he asked, as empty as our marriage. "Busy. Quarterly compliance reports are due soon." I watched him. "Eleanor called again today. She seems very interested in my schedule lately." His fingers paused. "She's probably planning something for your birthday. You know how she gets about family celebrations." Family celebrations. I wanted to laugh. "She asked specifically about the Miami conference." "I haven't told her about it yet." "Maybe I mentioned it," he said, still not looking up. "Can you pass the salt?" For the next 3 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. Every evening, after Cody went to bed, I worked in the darkness of our guest room, photographing documents by phone light, uploading files to encrypted drives that my college friend, Marie, stored for me. She didn't ask questions. She just made tea and promised to keep them safe. Family dinners became intelligence-gathering operations. I arrived early to help Eleanor, my phone recording in my jacket pocket as she chatted about Cody's, promising new clients, and how generous Anastasia had been with referrals. "Such a brilliant woman," Eleanor said one Sunday, arranging roses. "She really understands the value of strategic partnerships." Not everyone has that vision. Strategic partnerships, I repeated, slicing tomatoes with unnecessary force. "Is that what we're calling it?" "I'm not sure what you mean, dear." "Nothing," I said, smiling. "Just thinking about work." William was less subtle. Bourbon in hand, he'd pontificate. "Relationships are everything in this business. Sometimes you have to make unconventional alliances to survive." He'd look directly at Cody. I recorded it all, every knowing look, every coded reference, every moment they thought they were being clever while I played the oblivious wife. The breakthrough came during a routine system update at Meridian. Buried in the client development budget, I found Anastasia's weakness: hubris. She had been billing everything to the company. The Valentino dress for the gala? Client relationship building. The couple's massage at the Mandarin Oriental? Executive stress management. The private jet to Martha's Vineyard? Strategic planning retreat. Each receipt, each transaction, bore 2 signatures, Anastasia Blackwood and Cody Hawthorne. My husband had been signing off on luxury purchases for another woman, authorizing expenses that violated every policy I had written for Meridian. The paper trail was so brazen, so carelessly arrogant, it took my breath away. They hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been documenting it in corporate financial records. I photographed everything, backed it up in 3 locations, and sent encrypted copies to Linda Garrison. Her response was immediate. "This is wire fraud, securities fraud, embezzlement. Your boss just handed you a federal case." The baby shower for William's niece provided the final piece. Held at the Yale Club, all pastel balloons and champagne brunches. Eleanor pulled me aside. "You look tired, dear. All this work can't be good for you." "It's just a demanding time," I said, letting exhaustion creep into my voice. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm missing out on other things by focusing so much on my career." Eleanor's eyes lit up. "A career is important, but it shouldn't be everything. Sometimes we need to accept that people grow in different directions. Cody, for instance, has been exploring new horizons lately. It's healthy for a marriage when both partners have room to explore their options." Explore their options. I kept my voice neutral. "Oh, you know what I mean," she continued. "Professional development, new connections. Anastasia has been wonderful for his career growth. You should be proud that he's expanding his network. And you think I should focus on my career while Cody explores?" "Exactly." Eleanor squeezed my arm, mistaking my tone for acceptance. "You're such a smart girl, Sierra. Focus on what you do best and let Cody do the same. Everyone ends up happier that way." Her words, captured clearly on my phone, were the confession I needed. Not just knowledge of the affair, but active encouragement, strategic planning, family collusion, and my humiliation. That night, I locked myself in our bedroom. I spread everything across the bed: printed emails, photographed receipts, transcribed recordings, Linda's financial analysis, Marcus's calendar evidence. It looked like the war room of a prosecutor preparing for the trial of the century. I worked until dawn, organizing everything into a single, comprehensive report. The financial fraud alone totaled over $300,000. The conflicts of interest violated dozens of SEC regulations. The paper trail led directly from Anastasia's executive suite to the Hawthorne family bank accounts. But the most damning section was the timeline. 6 months of deception laid out hour by hour, dinner by dinner, lie by lie. Every time Cody kissed me goodbye while planning to meet Anastasia. Every family gathering where they discussed my schedule to facilitate their encounters. Every moment they smiled at me while counting the money flowing from my boss to their accounts. As the sun rose, I looked at the man sleeping beside me, his face peaceful. He had no idea I had built a case that would destroy everything he knew. The woman he had married, who trusted blindly, loved completely, was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that love without respect was worthless. And that the best revenge wasn't emotional. It was procedural, systematic, and absolutely devastating. I closed my laptop. The evidence was complete, undeniable, devastating. Now, I needed to decide how to deploy it. The answer came 3 days later, in the form of Eleanor's phone call. "Sierra, darling, your birthday is coming up," she said, an unusual brightness in her voice that immediately put me on alert. "William and I want to host a party for you at our townhouse. 39 deserves proper celebration." Eleanor had never once offered to host my birthday in 12 years. The sudden enthusiasm felt orchestrated. "That's very generous, Eleanor," I said. She interrupted, her tone shifting to command. "I've already started making arrangements. Saturday the 15th, cocktails at 7, dinner at 8. Intimate. Family and close friends." "Who did you have in mind for the guest list?" I asked. A pause. "Well, family, of course, some of William's business associates. And I thought it would be appropriate to invite Anastasia Blackwood, given your professional relationship. It would be a nice gesture, don't you think? Show that there are no boundaries between work and family life. No boundaries." The phrase hung between us like a confession she didn't realize she'd made. I gripped my phone, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Of course, Anastasia should definitely be there." "Wonderful. I'll handle everything. You just show up looking beautiful." After ending the call, I mapped out exactly what Eleanor was planning. A controlled environment where they could manage the narrative. Announce Cody and Anastasia's relationship as if it were a mutual decision we'd all reached. Frame it as sophisticated, modern, evolved all the words they'd been rehearsing while plotting my humiliation. The timing was perfect, but not for the reason they thought. I spent the next week making my own preparations. First, the SEC offices in Lower Manhattan. The investigator, Janet Chin, reviewed my documentation with increasing interest. "This is extensive," she said. "You understand that filing a formal complaint triggers an investigation that can't be stopped once it starts?" "I understand completely." 2 days before the party, I hand-delivered copies of everything to 3 different destinations. The SEC received the complete financial fraud documentation. Meridian's board of directors received a package by a certified mail detailing their CEO's misuse of corporate resources and breach of fiduciary duty. The state attorney general's office received evidence of the broader conspiracy, contract manipulation, and commercial bribery. Each package was timed to arrive Monday morning, 48 hours after my birthday party. I wanted the Hawthorns to enjoy their last weekend of thinking they'd won. The envelope I prepared for the party itself was a masterpiece of condensed destruction. Into a single manila envelope, I placed the most damning pieces of evidence: photographs of Cody's signatures on Anastasia's personal expenses, screenshots of text messages between him and Anastasia discussing the family's financial benefits, Eleanor's recorded admission that she wanted me to focus on my career while Cody explored options, and copies of the filed reports with their official timestamps visible. I sealed it with the same methodical care I used when preparing compliance violations that would end careers and trigger criminal investigations. This envelope would be my birthday gift to myself. The moment I stopped being their victim and became the architect of their downfall. Marie agreed to attend the party. "You want me to record whatever happens?" she asked. "They're planning something. I can feel it. They want to use my birthday party to force me to accept the situation publicly, probably with all their society friends as witnesses." Marie's expression hardened. She'd been there for my wedding, seen me build my life. Where should I position myself? Eleanor always makes speeches from the fireplace. You can get a clear angle from near the bar. You'll capture everything. Be discreet. I want documentation of whatever they've planned. And I want multiple angles of their reactions when I give them my response. You're going to confront them? I'm going to give them exactly what they think they want. A mature, sophisticated response to their betrayal. They just won't realize until it's too late that my definition of maturity includes accountability. The Thursday before the party, I visited my lawyer. New bank accounts, retirement funds moved, marital assets documented. Cody wanted a divorce? I would be ready. That evening, I found Cody in his study, the door unusually open. He looked up, something flickering across his face. Guilt, perhaps, or anticipation. Your mother called about the party, I said. It's very thoughtful of her to host. She wants to do something special for you, he replied, his voice neutral. You only turned 39 once. True. And she mentioned Anastasia will be there. Cody's fingers stilled on his keyboard. Is that a problem? Why would it be a problem? She's my boss. We work together every day. I studied his face, but I'd learned to wear the same mask they'd all been wearing for months. The one that said everything was fine while kingdoms burned behind our eyes. You're right, he said finally. It's good to maintain those relationships. Relationships. Everything in the Hawthorne world came down to relationships. They had built their entire conspiracy on the assumption that relationships mattered more than truth. Saturday would teach them otherwise. Saturday would show them that some betrayals couldn't be managed, negotiated, or restructured. Some betrayals demanded the kind of justice that came with federal investigations and public disgrace. Saturday arrived with a crisp March weather that made Manhattan look like a movie set. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the black cocktail dress I'd chosen. Elegant enough for Eleanor's standards, dark enough for a funeral. Cody emerged from the bathroom, his cologne filling the room, the same scent he'd worn to our wedding. You look beautiful, he said, meeting my eyes in the mirror. For a moment, regret, or perhaps just anticipation of the performance. Thank you, I replied, slipping the manila envelope into my purse. Your mother will appreciate that we're making an effort. The drive to the townhouse felt longer than usual. Cody kept checking his phone. I watched the city pass by, counting the minutes until everything would change. Eleanor had outdone herself. The townhouse glowed with soft lighting, fresh flowers, enough champagne to float a small yacht. Guests were arriving. William's business associates, Eleanor's book club friends, a handful of my Meridian colleagues looking slightly uncomfortable. Sierra, darling. Eleanor swept toward me, a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Happy birthday. You look absolutely stunning. Behind her, Anastasia stood near the bar in a red dress, raising her champagne glass in a mock toast, her smile sharp as winter wind. Marie was positioned exactly where we discussed, phone discreetly ready. The party unfolded like a choreographed dance. Appetizers, champagne, conversations about real estate, vacation plans. But I could feel the undercurrent of anticipation, how Eleanor kept checking her watch, William and Patricia exchanging glances. At exactly 8:30, Eleanor clinked her glass. Everyone, please, a toast to our dear Sierra on her 39th birthday. The crowd gathered as Eleanor delivered a speech that sounded heartfelt to anyone who didn't know better. She spoke of family, growth, embracing change, and new chapters. Every word was loaded with double meaning. To Sierra, she concluded, may this year bring you clarity, acceptance, and the wisdom to recognize happiness in all its forms. Guests applauded. Then, Eleanor touched my elbow. Sierra, dear, could you join us in the library for a moment? William has a special gift. I followed her, hearing Cody's footsteps behind us. The library door was open. William and Patricia waited like judges. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a trap springing shut. Sierra, William began, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he used with difficult clients. We wanted to speak with you privately because we care about you. We're family, and family looks out for each other. I remained standing as they arranged themselves in a semicircle. Patricia fidgeted with her bracelet. Eleanor took over, her voice smooth as aged whiskey. "We know this might be difficult, but we believe you're mature enough to handle the truth." Cody and Anastasia have developed feelings for each other. Real, profound feelings that transcend conventional relationships. Transcend. I repeated, the word tasting like spoiled wine. "They're soulmates." Eleanor continued, warming to her theme. "You can't fight that kind of connection. It would be selfish to try." William nodded sagely. "You're an intelligent woman, Sierra. Surely you understand that forcing people to deny their true feelings only creates misery for everyone involved." Patricia finally spoke, barely a whisper. "You're strong enough to handle this with dignity. We all know how capable you are." I let them finish their entire presentation, their carefully rehearsed arguments about emotional evolution and mature acceptance. They spoke about Cody's happiness as if it were a commodity more valuable than my dignity. They framed Anastasia's pursuit of my husband as some cosmic inevitability, not calculated predation. When they finally fell silent, waiting for my response, I smiled. It was the same smile I used when reviewing contracts with hidden termination clauses. "You're absolutely right," I said calmly. "I should handle this with maturity and grace." Eleanor's face lit up with relief. William actually sighed. Patricia's shoulders dropped. They thought they'd won. "Shall we return to the party?" Eleanor suggested, already moving toward the door. "No need to let this spoil your birthday celebration." I followed them back to the main room, where guests continued their conversations, oblivious to the tribunal that had just convened. Cody stood near the fireplace with Anastasia, their bodies angled toward each other with unconscious intimacy. I walked directly toward them, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The envelope in my purse felt warm. Conversations near us began to quiet as people sensed something shifting. "Cody, Anastasia," I said, loud enough for guests to hear. "Since we're all being mature adults here, I have something for you both." I pulled out the envelope, holding it between us like a verdict. Cody's face went pale before he even opened it. He recognized its weight. "Sierra, what is this?" Anastasia's voice carried a warning. But it was too late. "Open it," I said simply. "After all, we're handling this like sophisticated people, aren't we?" Cody's fingers fumbled with the seal. I watched his eyes scan the first page, the SEC filing stamp, the case number. His hands began to shake as he reached the second page, the documented fraud, the signatures he placed on Anastasia's personal expenses. The sound that escaped him wasn't quite a scream. It was more primal, the sound of someone watching everything they'd built evaporate like morning mist. The envelope fell from his hands, pages scattering across the marble floor. Guests could see the official headers, the word fraud visible in bold letters, the family business name listed as a co-conspirator. "Sierra, please, you don't understand," his voice cracked, reaching for me with hands that had signed away our marriage. "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent room. "My husband's family has known about his affair with my boss for months. They facilitated it because Anastasia was steering illegal profits to their struggling business. Every person in that library just tried to convince me to accept this quietly." The room remained frozen. Marie, from her position by the bar, had captured everything. Eleanor was the first to move, her face cycling through confusion, rage, fear, and finally a desperate calculation. "This is obviously a misunderstanding," she said, her voice pitched too high. "Family matters can be so complicated." "Federal fraud investigations aren't family matters," I said, bending to pick up a page. "This is a copy of the complaint filed with the SEC. Monday morning, investigators will begin reviewing how Anastasia Blackwood used Meridian Enterprises resources to enrich the Hawthorne family business through illegal contracts and kickbacks." Anastasia stood perfectly still, her red dress now a warning flag. Her eyes met mine, and I saw the exact moment she understood. Her phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times, probably her lawyer alerting her to the freeze orders. That would hit her accounts within hours. The guests began to leave, murmuring excuses. Nobody wanted to be associated with scandal of this magnitude. By Monday afternoon, the dominoes were falling with breathtaking speed. Meridian's board convened an emergency meeting at 7 a.m. By noon, Anastasia was suspended, her office sealed. The FBI had arrived at 10 a.m. with boxes, beginning the forensic accounting. Marcus sent a single text, "She's gone. Federal agents are here. Board wants to see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. The Hawthorne family business hemorrhaged clients. 3 major contracts terminated within 24 hours. William's phone rang constantly. Tuesday evening, Cody came home to pack. I stayed in the kitchen, but he found me anyway, standing in our bedroom doorway, red-rimmed eyes and 3 days of stubble. Can we talk? His voice was hoarse, broken. There's nothing to discuss. Your lawyer can contact mine. He stepped into the room. Sierra, please, just let me explain. Explain what? How you signed off on Anastasia's personal expenses. How your family orchestrated this whole thing. How you all sat around planning my humiliation while eating dinners I cooked. He dropped to his knees beside our bed. I never meant for it to go this far. He sobbed. It started as business. Dad's company was failing. Anastasia offered to help. And then it became something else. It became fraud. It became conspiracy. It became betrayal on a scale I couldn't have imagined. His words might have moved me 6 months ago. Now they sounded like what they were, desperate attempts to shift blame. Your family didn't forge your signature on those documents, I said quietly. They didn't force you to meet Anastasia at the St. Regis while I was traveling. You made those choices. I still love you, he whispered, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. No, you don't. You love the life I provided. The stability, the respectability, the cover for your family schemes. But love? Love doesn't conspire. Love doesn't deceive. Love doesn't treat someone's dignity as acceptable collateral damage. Wednesday brought the divorce papers. My lawyer, a specialist in high-asset divorces involving financial crimes, presented Cody with non-negotiable terms. He'd forfeit any claim to the brownstone, our investments, the car. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue additional criminal charges for the fraudulent tax returns we'd filed jointly. His attorney, looking exhausted, advised him to sign. Cody signed with hands that shook so badly he could barely hold the pen. The man who'd once signed million-dollar deals was reduced to a trembling mess. Thursday afternoon, Patricia appeared at my door. She looked destroyed. I need to tell you everything, she said, collapsing onto my couch. Not for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. But you should know the whole truth. She talked for an hour, my security system recording every word. How the conspiracy started 8 months ago, William confessing the business was failing. Eleanor suggesting Cody leverage his relationship with me to get closer to Anastasia. How they'd coached him, telling him it was just networking, just business development. We all knew from the beginning, Patricia sobbed. Every Sunday dinner, we discussed your schedule, planned their meetings, strategized how to keep you from finding out. Mom would say you were too smart to be fooled forever, but by then the money would be secured and you'd have to accept it. You thought I was naive, I said. We thought you were too focused on being perfect, the perfect wife, the perfect employee, to see what was happening. We didn't count on you being systematic, thorough. We didn't know you were documenting everything. She left as the sun set, her confession recorded and saved. The evidence was now complete. Not just financial fraud, but conspiracy, premeditation, and systematic deception involving every member of the Hawthorne family. By Friday, Eleanor's calls had shifted from angry demands to desperate pleas for mercy. You're destroying us, she wept in one message. William's having chest pains. The business is ruined. How can you do this to family? Family? The word had lost all meaning. Family was supposed to protect you, not orchestrate your betrayal. Family was supposed to celebrate your successes, not use them for exploitation. Family was supposed to love you, not trade your dignity for financial gain. I deleted every message without listening to the end. The Hawthorns had made their choices months ago. I sat in my empty brownstone that Friday night. Eleanor's desperate voicemails finally deleted. The silence felt like the first clean breath after swimming up from deep water. The house felt different now. Not lonely, but spacious. Not abandoned, but liberated. I poured myself a glass of wine, not the expensive bottles Cody had collected, but a simple Malbec I actually enjoyed and started planning what came next. 6 months passed in a blur of legal proceedings, depositions, and rebuilding. The investigation at Meridian expanded beyond Anastasia. The board, desperate to salvage their reputation, offered me a generous settlement to avoid a wrongful termination lawsuit. I took the money, signed the NDA, which specifically excluded criminal proceedings, and walked away from corporate life with enough capital to start over on my own terms. The office space I found in Queens was nothing like Meridian's glass towers. It was a converted corner unit in a building with a bakery and a tax preparation service. The morning light streamed through windows that actually opened, and the super brought me homemade empanadas. The rent was reasonable. The neighborhood felt real. And nobody knew or cared about my former life. Garrison Compliance Consulting officially opened. Linda, the forensic accountant, sent me my first client. A small import business worried about internal fraud. Within a week, I'd identified vulnerabilities and helped them implement controls. That client referred me to her sister, who ran a medical practice. She referred me to a tech startup. By month's end, I had 6 clients who valued my expertise not for my corporate pedigree, but because I helped them protect their businesses from predators like Anastasia and the Hawthorns. My work had purpose now. These weren't billionaires shuffling assets. These were people who'd built something real and needed someone to protect it. October brought news through the legal grapevine. The Hawthorne estate was for sale. I drove out to Long Island on a Sunday. Realtor signs swayed in the autumn wind. The rooms were empty. Eleanor's chandelier, William's library gone. A neighbor walking her dog recognized me. Such a shame about the Hawthorns. They had to sell everything. The legal fees, you know. And William's health hasn't been good. I made sympathetic noises, but felt nothing. They had chosen this path. Every time they facilitated a secret meeting. Every time they discussed my schedule. Every time they looked me in the eye while stealing from me. The criminal trials began in January. Anastasia plea bargained down to 2 years minimum security and 5 years probation in exchange for testifying about broader corruption at Meridian. The Hawthorne family business dissolved entirely. Cody avoided prison, barely, but received 3 years probation and was permanently barred from working in financial services. His mugshot appeared in the business section of the Times. William suffered a mild heart attack. Eleanor, who'd spent decades cultivating her position in society, found herself uninvited from charity boards and social clubs. Patricia moved to Seattle, changing her last name, starting over. My 40th birthday arrived in March, exactly 1 year after the party that destroyed the Hawthorne dynasty. Marie insisted on hosting a dinner at her apartment. Nothing fancy, just friends who'd known me before I was Mrs. Hawthorne, before Meridian. We sat around her kitchen table, eating Chinese takeout, drinking cheap wine, playing cards until midnight. Nobody mentioned Cody or the scandal. "You seem good," Marie said as she walked me to the door. "Really good. Not just surviving, but actually good." She was right. For the first time in years, maybe ever, I felt aligned with my own life. No performance, no managing appearances, no strategic relationships that required constant maintenance and calculation. A week later, I stood on my brownstone steps, coffee in hand, watching Brooklyn wake up. Cherry trees blooming. A young couple walked past with their baby, and I thought about the children Cody and I had never had. A blessing now. My phone buzzed with a text from a new client, a small investment firm that wanted help establishing compliance protocols to protect them from both internal fraud and predatory partners. It was exactly the kind of work that mattered. The truth I'd learned wasn't about revenge or justice or even survival. It was simpler than that. When someone shows you through their actions that your dignity is an acceptable casualty for their gain, believe them. Document everything. Report it to the proper authorities. And then build something better from whatever remains. The Hawthorns thought they were conducting a sophisticated financial operation. They never understood that what they were really doing was teaching me my own worth. Not in dollars or social standing, but in the simple ability to recognize deception, document truth, and refuse to be complicit in my own destruction. Standing there in the spring morning, I realized I'd won something more valuable than any settlement or verdict. I'd won the right to live without pretense, to work without compromise, and to trust without fear. The Hawthorns had lost everything trying to take what wasn't theirs. I'd gained everything by simply refusing to let them. So, after hearing all of that, I have to ask, what would you have done in my shoes when you first saw Cody's hand on Anastasia's shoulder? Let me know in the comments. I'm truly curious to hear your take on this.